Hello everybody, this is a presentation on meal planning. First I want to start off with hold all your questions till the end. I will answer them at the end of this meal plan presentation. Before I get started, I want to discuss what a meal plan is. So I started meal planning in the beginning of October. And meal planning is the act of planning what you are going to eat at mealtime ahead of time. So it can be a week ahead, it can be a month ahead. You can plan for the whole year if you'd like. Why I do this meal plan? It saves me money, time, and there's no thinking what's to eat at the end of the night. Benefits of meal planning. It saves money, it saves time, reduces stress, and helps me make healthier choices. I found that I've been eating much healthier since I started meal planning, and I've also saved tons of money. I've cut my meal budget in half. Before we get started, things that I want you to remember is don't let the meal plan scare you. If you leave it scare you, you're not going to get very far. It's just a simple plan, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Be flexible. If it doesn't work out, try something new. Learn from your mistakes. I've made many mistakes over the past 2 months meal planning, and I've learned that if you make a meal plan and you can't afford everything in your meal plan, to always have a backup. I've learned that you go over budget sometimes, and you learn from that. Utilize your tools. There's lots of tools. There's a slow cooker, the fryer, the Instapot, sheet pans, grills, ovens, stovetops, microwaves. They're all very useful. Your resources, utilize those resources. Some of the resources I like to utilize is Mind Over Munch, Good Cheap Eats, and lifeasamom.com. Some of the other things I like to remember are your backup plan. So before we begin into the main part of the meal plan, I want to get into the backup plan. So this is my backup plan. Easy meals to make when there's nothing to eat. This will be in your packet. So there's space for about 12 different meals you can plan for backup. Always make sure you have these ingredients on hand. Make this a pantry staple. You can always utilize these when you're in a rut and your budget needs to be a little lower, or you're in a rut and your plan doesn't work out. Before we begin, I want you to keep in mind these questions. How many meals do we need to plan for? What types of meals do we need? What time constraints do we have? What is this week's backup recipe? Always have a backup recipe in mind. So for my backup recipes, I have macaroni and cheese, spaghetti, rice and beans, jambalaya, and Alfredo. Now keep in mind I am pescatarian and I do not eat your pork, beef, and chicken and turkey, but these are great backup meal plans. And always try to make sure that your meal is balanced. So let's break it down. Before you start making your meal plan, you want to break down how much is in your budget. So for me personally, my budget is $194. And to figure out how much money I can spend each week, you divide how many weeks are in a month. So for November, there's 4 weeks in this month. and I have $194. So 4 divided by 194 is $48.50. So that's my budget. So why set a budget? It makes shopping a little harder, but it's so much easier, and you save so much money. Ways to save. Coupons. Coupons are a big thing. There's lots of websites and resources out there that you can get coupons, and there's lots of newspapers that have coupons in them. There's savings cards, like at Giant, they had the bonus card, and there's sales. Wise is a good one for 10 for 10 deals. So this is my backup plan before we get started into creating a meal list. So your meal list is going to be a list like this, and you're just going to decide what kind of meals you want, and in your packet I will have them provided for you. So this is a list of different things that you can make around the house. There's 23 on here. Keep in mind, this is a list before I became a pescatarian. And there are some pescatarian, vegetarian recipes on here. This is a lunch list. And then you have your dinner list. Keep in mind, you can do a breakfast list. I personally am not a breakfast person, so I personally do not do breakfast. So when you're creating your list, designate a time and a day to do this, all your shopping and your planning. So when you're designating your time and day, make sure your family is also on the same page and create a meal list like I just showed you. Make room for new recipes. So I don't always put in that I'm having a certain meal every day. Sometimes I'll write grab and go, and that'll be my space for a new recipe. Or I'll write try a new recipe, and that'll be my space for trying a new recipe. And when I like the recipe, I will add it to my binder. So I will have in your packet at the end some recipes that you can use and try that were my favorites. One of them that I just made was vegetable lasagna, and it was amazing. It made a lot, and it would be enough for the whole family plus leftovers. So now we're going to get into taking inventory. So taking inventory is very simple. All you're doing is making a list of everything in your refrigerator, your pantry, and your freezer. And you can also count your cupboards in with the pantry list. Another thing you can look at for reference is a pantry staples checklist. So some of the staples on here I personally do not use, but you can always refer to this to get ideas. Like beans and tomatoes, those seem to be a big thing for me. But for you, it might be something different. Now, after we create our checklist of what you have in your fridge, freezer, pantry, cupboards, we're going to start on creating a meal plan. So this is our meal plan. This is our example meal plan, which is in your packet. So there's a lots of different meal ideas on here, and it gives you a grocery list on the upper right hand corner. And that I just jot down what I know I'm gonna need. Now if I'm reusing this recipe, this meal plan, I won't write on the thing. I will put it in a plastic sheet and write with dry erase markers on my meal plan, or I will write on a separate piece of paper the groceries I need to get. which we'll get into a grocery list a little bit later. And then there's ways to prep ahead on the bottom right corner. So we're going to get into prepping ahead and how I keep track of prepping ahead in the next section. So before we get started, you want to decide what meals you're planning for. Are you planning for breakfast, lunch, dinner? Are you planning for just 2 or just 1? On here, there's planned for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Remember to keep your budget in mind when you're doing this. An example of some of my favorites are for breakfast, burritos. Lunch is a fish wrap, and for dinner is curry soup. So if you just want to take a look at the example meal plan, I'm going to then discuss how to get ideas to build your menu up a little bit. Make sure you keep your schedule in mind while you're doing this. So now that we wrote out our meal prep plan, we need to plan how we are going to make this work. So a lot of busy parents out there will not have time to prep like somebody that doesn't have much to do. So some of the things you can do is called a meal plan prep list. So this is a diagram of the meal plan prep list. And I have an example in your packet for this meal plan. And it shows you just what I do for the meal plan. I start my prep list on the day before the meal plan starts and continue it through to the day before the meal plan ends. And on this, I just write down what I'm going to do each day. This saves lots of time in the kitchen. And another thing you can do to build ideas for your menu is do a themed meal plan. So on your packet, I have an example of a themed meal plan. The meal plan is a Sunday through Saturday meal plan, and each day there's a theme. So it can be pasta, vegetarian meals, tofu, if you eat tofu, Mexican, Asian, Italian, casseroles, stir fries, salads. There's lots of different themes you can make. Another thing you can do is cycle through your menus. In my personal meal plan, I have menus on a cycle. They're numbered 1 through 6, and then I have ones that are numbered 1 through 3, depending on what I want to do. You can change it up, make it healthy. Don't forget leftovers. On our themed meal plan, I do not have leftovers as a theme, but don't forget to add that in. And another one that I don't have on here as a theme is freezer meals. Freezer meals are super easy. You can find lots of recipes for like gallon bag freezer meals. They're super fun to do. And also make sure it's satisfying for everybody. Make sure you're including your family while you're doing this, if you're making for a family. Now we're going to get into creating our shopping lists. So on here I have a shopping list, a very simple shopping list that are things that, according to my pantry, I needed for this menu. So some of the things I needed were veggies, and I needed 3 servings, so I put in the quantity list, I put a number 3. Tortillas, I only had half of a pack of tortillas, so I put 2 more tortillas because I'm going to be making burritos and tacos. And then you have your bread, eggs, taco meat, nacho chips, salsa, cheese sauce, sour cream, and milk. Now, when it comes to sour cream and milk, I only needed it for tacos and cereal, so sour cream for tacos and milk for cereal. So I made sure in parentheses on the quantity, I put small. Now, I am lactose intolerant, so I will keep the milk to a minimum when I buy milk, because I will drink it all. And then there's a blank one in there for you. Referring to your pantry list while you're doing this is a big thing. You want to have your pantry list right by your side while you're doing this. So your next step is to shop wisely. Stick to your list. Try to stay away from that candy aisle when you get into the checkout. That's a sucker for getting you to buy stuff. Compare your prices. Comparing prices is a great way. And on your grocery list, it also has costs. So you can write down what the cost of each thing is and refer to this. What I personally do is staple my receipt to the meal plan when I'm done. So my grocery list has a receipt stapled to it, so you can also refer to what store you went to buy this meal plan if it worked out in costs. So your grocery expense tracker is keeping track of everything for the year. So you'll write down the date you did the grocery shopping. You'll write down the store you went to and the amount you spent. And at the end of this, you total it up for a grand total of whatever you spent. And in your packet, I have an example. So for the month of October, which was my first month meal planning, I went to Walmart on the 29th of September to buy food for the first week of October, and I spent $40.40. On October 5th, I went to Walmart again and spent $38.54. On October 10th, I went to Giant and spent $31.82. On October 18th, I went to Giant again and spent $32.94. And on October 19th, I went to Aldi's and spent $33.47 for the last week of the month. And I came to a grand total of $179.17. And my on this example, I have my total budget. It was $194. So I was under budget, pretty good. So some of the tips I want to give you is to get inspired. Find something that inspires you to do this. There's websites out there. What inspired me was YouTube. Create a place to save recipes. So I save my recipes in my meal plan book, and there's also recipes in there for you to try, like the burritos, the fish wraps, and there's a few other extra ones in there that I threw in there if you'd like to try them. Ask for ideas. Get involved with your family. Include your family. Include friends. Ask friends what they like to eat. Find some family favorites that you enjoyed growing up. Use a calendar. Theme your meal plans. We talked about themed meal plans. There's lots of different themes to use. Stick to your list. It's hard in the beginning, but once you get used to it, it makes life so much easier. Plan a shopping day. So for me, I plan my shopping day on the weekends because my schedule during the week is chaos. Check the sales, check the newspaper, check the internet for coupons, check anything you can for sales. Plan for leftovers. Leftovers are a big thing in my household. I only feed myself, but believe me, there's always something left over to eat. Keep a backup plan. So your backup plan is going to be your first paper you came across when there's nothing, easy meals when there's nothing to eat. Don't forget about your freezer meals. So freezer meals are very simple. I will put a couple of freezer meals that you can store in a storage bag, in a freezer bag, and you can just thaw it out the night before and throw it into the crock pot, or wait till you get home and throw it right into the oven and just cook it away. Think double duty. Leftover ingredients. So what I do for leftover ingredients is, like an example, I bought cumin and I used it for one meal. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this spice. It's one meal, and I'm not going to make this meal like every week because I'm going to get sick of it. So what do I do with it? So I looked on the internet, recipes with cumin. Came up with a huge list. So that's the end of my tips. Now I'm going to get into some of the questions that I have accumulated over the time I have been meal planning. Some questions that people have asked me when I start talking about my meal plan. Some questions that I had when I started my meal plan. So how do you think of meals to make is the first question. Family favorites, recipe books, internet themed meal plans. Family favorites is my favorite one to go to. Number 2, how do you come up with a new meal ideas and not get stuck in a rut? New meal ideas are so fun. I go through recipe book after recipe book, and I use things that I have. So I will go in my pantry and be like, oh, well, I need to use up my tortilla shells. So what am I going to make today? Number 3, what do you do for breakfast? This was a big one for me. One that I do is oatmeal, burritos. Burritos is my all-time favorite. Pancakes, French toast, and eggs. What do you do for number 4? What do you do for lunch? I do one-pot meals, simple meals like macaroni and cheese and pasta, leftovers, and salads. Sometimes I just hard-boil some eggs and eat some hard-boiled eggs for lunch. How often do you plan meals is the question for number 5. I started planning meals once a month. I'm not sure if it's going to work out the way I want it to, but right now it's working out great. You can plan meals as often as you want. In the beginning, I started off once a week, went to every 2 weeks, went to every 3 weeks, went to once a month, which is every 4 weeks. Why do I plan meals is the 6th question. It makes shopping simple, fast, and there's no thinking at the end of the day. Who wants to think about what you're going to make for dinner when you get home from work? How often do you go to the store is the 7th question. So I go to the store every 2 weeks and shop for meals for like 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks. Number 8, do you use coupons or shop at different stores? I personally do not use coupons. I would love to get started. And I shop at different stores. I shop at Aldi's, Giant, Price Right, and Walmart. I find myself going to Walmart and Aldi's the most. Number 9, what tools do you use to meal plan? So my tools is my meal plan packet. So this packet that you have in front of you is my favorite tool. And other tools I use are my appliances. So I will look up a stovetop meal. I will look up a sheet pan meal. I will look up crock pot meals or Instapot meals and go with pick an appliance that I'm going to use. I've actually already made my theme according to appliances. So 1 week I made sheet pan meal for the whole week for dinner. And it worked out great. One thing I like to do is on a Saturday or Sunday, I like to do the crock pot because it's so much easier than having to watch over what you're doing, and you can get your meal prep done while making dinner and not having to watch over your dinner. Number 10, why did you switch to pescatarian? So I get this question a lot. I switched to pescatarian because I wanted to try something new, and I don't really care for meat. So the chicken, beef, and pork and turkey, I personally am not a big fan of, but I am a big fan of fish. I don't think I could ever give up my fish. Number 11, what benefits have you noticed since switching? The only benefit I've noticed since switching is I'm less tired. Number 12, Do you find different recipes difficult to find? No, I personally do not find recipes hard to find because I look through on the internet, through Pinterest, in recipe books. I look everywhere for recipes and I save my old ones. Save them in your meal plan. If you make a meal plan and you decide to keep your meal plan for that week because it worked out great and you love the new recipe you added, save it with that meal plan. Even if you have to print it out more than once, save it with the meal plan. So when you go to that meal plan, all you do is turn the page and your recipes are right there. Number 13, how do you curb your cravings for food from your old diet? So I make substitutes, like meat substitutes. I use bean burgers, which I'll provide that recipe for you. They were amazing. They're a little different in taste and their texture's a little different, but they're very satisfying. Number 14, where did your research start? My research started on YouTube. I binge watched YouTube for 4 or 5 hours one night and decided this is what I want to do. Between meal planning and being a pescatarian, I was set. Who sparked your interest is number 15. So for this one, my interest was sparked here at the Rose Garden by Sean and Megan. And Megan is a vegetarian, I believe, and Sean was vegetarian also until she stopped. And it was just fascinating to see the different meals they made and how they kept to their plans. Sean was a big help in this experience of meal planning and becoming a pescatarian. Number 16, how do you cut down prep time? So this is a big question for everybody. Everybody always asks me, how do I not stand in the kitchen for 2 hours every night cooking and prepping food? I utilize my resources. I will prep stuff while stuff's in the oven. Tonight I made Mediterranean baked potatoes and it took me 35 minutes total to make that meal because I prepped everything while I threw my sweet potatoes in the oven and prepped everything in the oven. I will provide that meal for you in a recipe. Make a prep day. Make a time and a day for prep. So if you're the least busy on a Sunday and you throw your meal in a crock pot and have time to sit and relax, instead of sit and relaxing, pull out your meal plan. Get it started. Find out what you want to do with your meal plan. Figure out what meals you're going to plan for the week, what time you're going to do the meals. And that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. And I will answer any of your questions you have.